Hey guys, Tommy Carrigan with Tommy Untamed. We've got a great show coming up. Thank you for watching. I was gonna say I was walking through Portland earlier, and as I was just telling you, I always just feel the eyes of hatred on me for daring to be a white man. But like, it's always funny. The people I never have problems with are the people at CVS and the people in here, and it's because the people at CVS are employed with higher education, and the people here. This is a nice apartment building, which means everyone here is employed and or retired. It's always kind of funny. I don't have issues with the people who are responsible. I have issues with the people who. And why are you walking around in the middle of Portland on a Tuesday? Like, where's your job? But not to just sound like a full old curmudgeon now. But the your tweet you showed me, the finance as a religion, it does make me think. And I'll stop yapping in a minute. But I was just kind of going off on a tangent like a year ago, playing video games about like my hatred of the idea of like nostalgia. Very simply because like we're like, and I won't word it because it was like a 10-minute rant, but I'll basically along the lines of like the one true thing we all truly worship through our actions, regardless of our words, through our actions, is technology. In that, well, why do you work? You work because you gotta, get money to pay rent and all that. Do you love your job? No, but you'd much rather do a job you dislike than be homeless, be exposed to the elements, blah blah blah, the pyramid of the hierarchy of needs. All right, so if you really did hate your job, well then you'd save every single penny every single day to stop. Well, it's actually I'd also rather have a phone or an iMac or a new TV because it is enjoyable. And I'm right there with you. Better refresh rate, higher resolution, whatever. But in the same way that you may hate your job, but you don't hate it as much as the idea of being homeless, not having food or water, being exposed to the elements,
Being a barbarian.
whatever, you also, as much as you hate your job, you don't hate it as much as not partaking in the newest technology. So, in that sense, through our actions, the things that we worship the most is the progression of technology. I think Marshall McLuhan or Terrence McKenna said, "We are the bootloaders of we are the biological bootloaders." Or no, the exact quote was, "We are the sex organs of the machine world." And so to kind of bring up just the opening sentences in that tweet that I just barely glanced at was, this is our religion, and you do have to look at it in terms of like, well, what are the cathedrals? What are the captors of the mind? You go to Manhattan, it's the biggest and I love skyscrapers, but it's just going to it just huge platinum lobbies and the undersea cables. I remember reading an article like a decade ago about there's either JP Morgan or Goldman Sachs had spent something like $2 billion on getting their own like addition to the undersea cables, and it was a cutting edge fiber optic because with high frequency trading that added up to around $600 million in profit a
Well, that's what I
year.
used to do.
Yeah,
That's
paid it,
my
so
old
it paid for
world. Yeah,
itself
yeah,
in
yeah.
5 years. And
Yeah.
you look at it and you go, our actions are what we truly worship. And it is fascinating. Like, yeah, you can call it this, you can call it that. And I'm not even trying to be some, commie faggot talking about it's bad to push society forward, but that is our religion. I mean, what is the thing we all
But
look
it's
at
not
every day?
tech.
No.
Tech's not our religion. It's money.
Well, exactly. Well,
Money is the
you
religion.
use money is
Yeah.
the ATP. It is the blood force that pushes tech forward. Tech is just it's something that's coming off of
I want to I want to disagree here, actually. This is a great place to
all right,
start the
yeah, you just
conversation, by
wing
the
it,
way.
yeah.
Right? Not wing it, but um this is actually a great place to have a conversation, Tommy. We are told that we worship at the altar of tech. That's not true. We worship at the altar of money, of wealth, necessary to buy tech. What is tech? Tech is like the Catholic Church back in, before Luther had his, remonstrance and hammered up what is Luther, right? I get
Yeah,
them
Martin Luther,
Calvin and
99
Luther. Yeah,
Theses,
Martin
yeah.
Luther, right? Um, what was the 95 points? Well, you can't buy your way into heaven. Well, isn't that what we're trying to do with the latest iPhone?
Yeah.
And the latest high speed connection, the latest, whatever. we're not worshiping tech. That's not right. That's the indulgences. That's the things that gets us into heaven, that we're adhering to the religion. But what is the actual religion? It's the life that we live, the things that we sacrifice to be able to afford those things.
That's what I meant when I said coming off the leading edge. It's like
Uh,
finance.
uh, uh,
Finance is breaking the sound barrier. Tech is, if you don't look at it immediately, you go, that's what we're praising. And it's like, no, that's on like the very front ripple
yeah,
of the
yeah, yeah,
shockwave.
yeah, yeah,
But
yeah,
it's not.
yeah,
It's not
yeah,
the shockwave is. I mean, that's all, and that's all it's ever been. That's all it's ever been. It's from the bird doing the mating dance in the nest to the penthouse on Wall Street. That's all it's
yeah,
ever been.
yeah,
Is
yeah.
the worship of finance, and there's really nothing to do. You can't. You have to use the finance on something. Like you,
Well,
it's the
unless
money
you're
is the.
Amish, and so who's under attack right now? All
That's
out in
fair.
tack,
Yeah, that's
right?
fair.
So in the 1600s, so back to the conversation Tom and I had,
Long ago, yeah.
after the conversation you and I had with him, um, I believe very firmly that, and people can come after me, this and that, whatever. I don't really care, honestly. I'm not an atheist. I'm not a Christian though, but I did go to Christian schools. I went to private boarding schools and, Catholic schools and Seventh-day Adventist schools, and I kind of actually might not know the scriptures, and I might know the canon, and you know, um,
You don't have to be
eh,
Christian to benefit from those nuns. Those nuns know how to beat the puberty out of you.
dude, there's no exaggeration. I have scars on the back, quite
Oh,
literally on
yeah,
the
your
back of my
hands. Yeah,
freaking knuckles,
Sister
man.
Lorraine.
And to be honest, while there's trauma there that, some
Oh, it's
crazy stripper is going to probably have to help me work through one day. Um, I got to thank the nuns. They were cold and ruthless,
a
but not
hundred.
everything they said was wrong,
No, they rule with an
right?
iron fist. Is
They
what you have to
ruled,
do when you're hitting
well,
12, 13. Yeah,
the wife of Jesus can do whatever she wants.
yeah, that's
That's
true.
that's that silver ring they wear
Yeah,
on their, right. They're the wives of Jesus. Angry penguins is what I call them.
they were.
Actually,
They were.
sexually
Yeah,
repressed penguins. That's what I called them when I was young, going to Catholic schools.
they were. Yeah, they were. You can't escape
Go,
them. I remember
can't
when we
escape them.
moved from New Hampshire to
Uh,
Georgia. That New Hampshire was the last time I had nuns. So like 2000, 2001 when I was
yeah.
10. And I remember we moved to Georgia and we were watching a Red Sox game one day. And sure enough, the camera zoomed in, and there was Sister Lorraine and Sister Benedict. And I was like, Jesus, no, Benedict, Bernardina. I was like, Jesus Christ in heaven. I'm 3,000 miles away, and
Yeah, 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 yeah,
there
yeah,
they
yeah,
are, and
yeah,
they like
yeah,
they
yeah,
were in their nut outfits, like on the big green monster. Just
yeah, their
you're like,
habits. Yeah, yeah,
hell, they're watching
yeah,
you. Um,
yeah. You know what? I think, and I mean no disrespect to Catholics at all. Okay, none at all. But
I don't care.
I the sparrow scene in our trail in Game of Thrones,
Never
and
seen
there
any
was
of
that
them.
one, oh, there's this one, I can't remember her name, but she was like the nun that was over the queen. Anyways, just reminded me. It was like, okay, but back to what I was saying. Um, the more and more I look, Christianity died in the 1600s. And what replaced it was this finance religion, the financialist religion, this faith, and it really is faith, right? But this faith in finance, this replacing of God, Yahweh, God, with wealth, and the replacement of the Savior Jesus Christ with money, right? And I did a meme a little bit ago that was like, there but for the grace of money go I. Well, that's kind of the world we live in, isn't it? Don't we live our lives in praise and subjugation to finance?
Hmm.
Don't we try to earn our way to paradise, to virtue through, you know, wage and tax and debt slavery? Buying the latest things because that's like, again, like, buying a little bone of Peter's foot from the old days.
I was gonna say there is something to the fact that it's like, what's the one thing we all hone in on every day? And it's,
Money.
well, yeah,
It's our bank
the
account.
market. It's what's the one universal.
It's the mar
I
okay,
don't
so
I don't watch sports, so whenever my dad's
yeah,
like, the Patriots did well in the
yes,
draft, my other two
yes.
brothers, I'm like, I don't know that. But what's the one thing we all know? No one's ever surprised when everyone knows, you know, when the tariff announcement came and everything got, or everyone knows when it goes through the roof, or everyone knows when gold moves, everyone
What's the
knows when,
overnight what's the overnight financial swaps rate
everyone knows.
yesterday?
I don't own stock,
What's
and
the
I
US
know.
dollar, right?
Yeah,
So Tommy, you went
it's
right
the
to it. It's like
universal. We all know.
it's we all know. And
Yeah.
I was thinking about this earlier before you and I, got on. Uh I don't watch a single thought leader who's actually somebody that I really need to pay attention to because they are driving the world that has all to do, forget my language, but all to do with religion. Every single one of them either has to do with geopolitics, geostrategy, but every one of those things impacts finance. And the people that I pay attention to, that I have to, because that's what's driving the world, it's all in finance.
Tim Dillon, my favorite comedian, said, he's like, I don't know when but his years, but it was so right. And he goes, I don't get caught up in like New York. He's like, I had a buddy who was like a wealthy hedge fund manager. He's like, and I never knew if conservative, liberal. He goes, don't read New York Times. That's gonna go. Which that depends on who's in power and what's in vogue
What the
culturally.
message is.
He
Yeah.
goes, he's like, if you want the world news, I think he's like, you go to New York Times Finance or something. He goes, because there's no emotion. You go, they need a pipeline through Qatar. All right, so that's okay. Everything that we're seeing is some way or another a ripple of, oh, they're moving to a lot more timber in Siberia, but they just found a bunch of gallium in South Africa. Everything else flows through. He goes, and that's where you'll learn the news. That's where you'll go, oh, that's why Biden just did that. And he goes, and you stop getting angry or stop cheering him on. You just start to see it as, you go, oh no, that company just, if there's a change in the number of shipping containers they can fit on, like every once in a while they push that forward. All of a sudden you go, oh, so you gotta short all these stock, and CSX Railways is doing that, and you really want to look out for Western Canada. And he goes, he goes, you stop seeing, the AOC versus Trump, and he goes, everything else just falls perfectly into place. Just watch the finance news.
Okay. So, what was the Peace of Westphalia? And later, because it got delayed by Cromwell, the Glorious Revolution in the UK and what would become the British Empire. It was a replacement of Christianity with the religion of finance. Financialism, right? Christianity, financialism, Islam, Judah, right? It's financialism. It was a replacement of Christianity in Europe, embedding it at the state. And oh, by the way, you know, I suspect the whole push for separation of church and state is not a separation of actual religion and state. It was just removal of the Christian church from state because it's certainly been replaced by the financial religion at every level. Like the SEC that has the revolving door with all the world's top, with all the leading investment banks of the country. So, what was the Peace of Westphalia and the Glorious Revolution? It was the embedding of the new religion of finance into governments all across the Western world. And we've been fighting it out ever since.
The Soviets' real issue was they vocalized what they were doing, saying we're an atheist society that focuses on production. You're supposed to not point that out. That's what we do.
Well, I actually, okay, so give me a second. So that's a great, okay, so I've
Our
been looking
actions
at
have
this for a
replaced the
little.
religion with finance. The Soviets, you're not supposed to say it.
Well, no, no, no. You're not supposed to say it, but what was, okay, so let's say that the new Vatican at the time in the 1600s was Amsterdam, because that was the center of European finance. And then it shifted over to the city of London because it was more securable, et cetera, 40 years later, 100 years later. Um, if that is the Vatican of the finance religion, then the Martin Luther reaction in the 1800s, 200 some odd years on, was Marx. Marx was the Protestant Reformation of the finance religion. And if you see it in that context, you're like, holy shit, of course.
Remind
Marx was the
remind
refuge.
remind me what the importance. I know Martin Luther and I know 99 Theses, but now that we're saying it, for me
Well,
to
that's the
understand it tonight.
Protestants. That's the Protestant
But
Reformation.
what was the crux? What was so important? What was the change in?
Well, and forgive me, I'm not, again, it's been a long time
No, I just
since,
so I
but
understand the
for all
analogy.
intents
Yeah.
and purposes, it was calling out the hypocrisy in this context, okay? It was calling it was calling out the hypocrisy of the Catholic Church, which is supposedly the first church, but that's actually the Orthodox Church. Whole different argument there. But it was a calling out of the hypocrisy whereby people could buy their way into heaven.
Okay. All right.
Okay. Which is at the heart of the finance religion. Become a
Genuine.
billionaire, buy your way into redemption,
Yeah.
right? Or
Utopia.
okay. Yeah. So what was Karl Marx? Karl Marx was calling out the new religion. And he was calling out the hypocrisy of the new religion, of capitalism. Although the finance religion isn't actually true capitalism. That's a tool they use to build a system up before they pillage it, right? But Marx was calling out the hypocrisy. Now, Marx was a total asshole, just as Luther, in his own ways, was a total asshole, right? They weren't wrong, though, completely. They were wrong about the hypocrisy. Excuse me, they were right about the hypocrisy. They were right about a lot of the things that they stated, but they were wrong about the prescription, right? So they're right about the proscription, wrong about the prescription, about what do we do about it, right?
Which is it's that's why I always have real issue when you see like some viral reel on Instagram where it's like old man lays down what's wrong with society. I've never put in any praise on people that can point out what's wrong with society. Anybody can do. Listen, if you can't do that, well, okay, well
Well,
that's
some
bad.
do it right. Some do it really
Some do
well,
it
like
better
this
than
Michael
others,
Hudson guy,
but
but
it's
his solutions are like, yeah, I'm not going to do that.
that's why it's like
Uh,
I get he's like a legend in the comedy world, but like the older I get and the more I look back at George Carlin, it's like okay, yeah, sure, military industrial complex bad, bankers bad, but there's really nothing after that. It's just like so fuck it all, and it's you're like okay, it is unique because it's like the in cinema the double take. It's like that's so I don't know, just cliche now. But you got to remember, at one point, it was like a breaking thing, like back in like the 1920s. Like, so it was cool. It's the first person to do a record scratch. Like now it's cliche, but at some point it was like hardcore. So I always try to remember like what we now accept as like cringy or eye rolling. At one point was the leading edge of whatever
uh,
culture, but yeah, the prescription is his was always just like his whole thing, right? It's a big club and you ain't in it. There's nowhere to go from that. It's nihilism. I look at Bill Hicks, was arguably angrier. If you really look at it, there was some true fire in that man. But I always loved his prescription because he would be so dark and just military industrial demons. They're just and raping you and planting the spawn of Satan in you, and then it would always come back to life is just a ride. And I think he was Christian, but he would always just throw a bone and go just God in general. He'd be like, but remember, like there is, The only hell is your own self isolation from God. And the moment you go back to God and remember that He loves you and that this is all a ride, the demons don't have. He always had something to go for. The I always hate when the prescription is just it's all. It's like, where do we go from here? It's ruined. Now what?
I
Sorry.
I will say that no apologies. Uh, I actually agree with you about Carlin. I was a big fan of Carlin's. I think Carlin is the model of what happened to him across time, going from really calling things out, and he did, I mean, in
He was
extraordinary
fantastic.
detail, and it was incredible. And he was able to put it in a way that people could recognize, common people, etc. It's the same. When I did my doctoral studies, before I did my doctoral studies in computational engineering, Dr. Murat Tanik was the gentleman who became my PhD lead. Actually, he's the one I sought out when I went to go do the studies. But he and I had known each other for several years before, and we had a conversation in Beirut or Beijing, China, many decades ago, and we were helping them with their intellectual property laws. But there was a side conversation he and I were having the whole time, and it was about the nature of reality and how do we model and map it. And one of the things he said, this is 2004, I think, maybe 2005. He said, and he's a electrical engineer, computational engineer, physicist, quantum physicist, et cetera. And I was having an articulation with him. He said, hey, listen, you can speed up to the level of the universe to understand what's going on, but because you're going that fast, you can't impact it. Can't do anything about it. He's like, if you're moving at the speed at which you can do things, you can move in the tangible physical world and bring about change, you can't speed up to such a degree that you actually know what the hell's going on. And that's really stuck with me. And and I think if you look across history at the great voices in history or the great movers in history, you'll see that divide.
It's the same thing as medicine versus research medicine. If you're going through the motions and you just do tonsillectomies all day, that's needed. I had one. It's
Yeah,
needed
yeah,
and it's appreciated. You're probably not reading up on the bleeding edge link between your chandelier cells in your brain and your lower intestine, and
correct. Yeah,
and the guys
yeah,
that are
yeah,
doing
yeah.
that
Yeah.
can't. Those brilliant doctors that are doing that
Couldn't do
research,
a tonsillectomy.
they can't put a cast on you.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah. So back to the George Carlin, right? Because I think George Carlin's indicative of an entire generation that were calling the thing out, the boomers, right? And I think he was actually a silent generation from before, but there's an entire generation that's been calling things out, but they haven't had fuck all ability to do anything about it. Now we need to do some things about it. And what is the thing that we need to deal with? We need to deal with the fact that Christianity was replaced 400 years ago, or almost 400 years ago. And we've, all of us, very much to what you articulated earlier, all of us are actually, virtually all of us, are adherents to that religion, knowingly or not,
Yeah, the only people that aren't are the ones who are born into trust funds, which in itself is adherence to the religion.
or into abject poverty, or who have fallen into abject
Yeah,
poverty and don't care.
yeah.
But anybody from the upper lower class to the lower upper class, actually
Yeah.
everybody supplanted everything, right? It's money and wealth and everything we talk about, even on a geostrategic level today, has to do with finance and money, whether we know it directly, again, as you articulated earlier, or not. We are all worshiping wealth. And we are all grateful for our Savior, cash.
But it's also it's not wholly faulty. Like in some senses, sure. I remember like a book my mom or grandma would always have us read when we were little was I think The Fisherman's Wife. It's just like a short kid's book. But he keeps bringing more things to his wife and she wants more. And it starts as like, I
Yeah,
caught a
yeah, yeah.
fish
I'm
we can eat
familiar.
tonight. And then it
Yeah.
finally ends with she wants a mountain made of diamond, I think. And then they get it all taken away. I get in that sense it's bad, but it's also very real. I mean, it's
Well,
well if
one
you
has to ask themselves, is our enemy the religion or the church that's developed around the religion? Is
sure.
the right?
But I was gonna say
Because
for like a lot of people, like my dad who grew up in insane, not lower class, I mean, fucked poverty. For him, it was like got out, had four sons, put them in private school. That probably the previous five generations of his family probably couldn't afford a single
yeah,
semester of.
yeah.
Put us in a nice neighborhood we never wanted. We always had health care, and I never went without a meal. Yeah, and a lot of people you would say, and what was that? That was a voracious pursuit of money. I go, yeah, it's not really a bad thing. I think you could probably
No,
point to that and be like,
he
that
was
was a pretty good vessel to get out.
he was an adherent to the religion, and the religion actually worked in the
It's
tangible world,
yeah,
in the very real
but it doesn't
world.
scale eternally.
I
Well, I
agree
mean,
with
you
that.
can pursue it to devious
The
ends
the issue. No, I was
or
going to say
nefarious.
again,
Wrong word.
the issue becomes one of, is the religion false or is the church false? And you can go back to Christianity and ask the
Yeah,
very
yeah,
same
yeah,
question,
yeah,
right? Because Orthodox Christianity is original Christianity in the time of Christ and the centuries after. And then Catholicism comes along in 1054. People think, oh, it's older. No, no, no. Roman Catholicism comes along in 1054 in the Great Schism. And then we've been fighting it all out since then. Was Christianity wrong or
no.
was the church
It's
wrong?
church. It's the cult around whatever. Around
It's the humanity goes through these cycles. And Joseph Campbell, in his unbelievable brilliance, talked about this. Hell, he died 40 years ago now, or almost 40 years ago. But, he talked about this. He said that there's a fourth myth-based system developing. It began with the Romans. Okay. I think that's actually the finance religion. It's practical and real, and people can earn a living with it, and people can, right? It's not about earning your right to, paying some priesthood to earn your right to heaven. That's when a church gets involved and convinces you of all these things, right? A BlackRock, a Deutsche Bank,
yeah,
etc., right? ING. But the religion itself may be not wrong because the finance religion's done more to raise people out of abject poverty and help people gain at least financial independence than any other religion before. Maybe all of them combined.
yeah,
But, and it was already developing under the Romans and the Orthodox and even, Catholics, non-Roman Catholics, but, it was already developing. But sometime between the late 700s and the early 1600s, it got completely hijacked. This fourth myth-based system where we are responsible for ourselves and each other monetarily, well, not monetarily, but productivity wise, got hijacked. And a new church developed, and that new church was the banks and the stock exchange, the banks and all of their various institutions, the new churches, the new cathedrals, the new, they hijacked a belief system, a concept system, which money is. Money is just wholly made up, right? The whole concept, the whole of wealth and money and all this complexity of finance, we made it all up. It's not like cells produce and function that way,
hmm
or pack animals, in tribe with one another. We made it all up. Now, is it more based in fundamental physics, chemistry, biology than other belief systems we've developed? Yeah, I suspect it probably is. Because if you look at it,
Yeah.
right, it is. But
It,
it's where we allowed it. So it's not the finance religion itself per se that's wrong or an evil. It's the churches that we allowed to develop that have hijacked it.
I think that's kind of always the case. It's like, and I don't legally, I don't know what's slander and what's not, but I mean, something like Susan G. Komen cancer awareness, or like Salvation Army, or like Red Cross. Like, it's like, well, is the religion bad? No, what, around Christmas you got a couple extra bucks, give it to the guy with the bell. That's good. Yeah, that's it. It's probably right. It always happened when we'd be in college, and they always knew to run the commercials late at night. I would imagine in college towns, because it'd be like a hurricane just hit Haiti, and we're all shit faced. You all feel bad. Text this number, and you all do it drunk, and you're like, is that a bad thing? Yeah, probably not. Probably not. Yeah, you give money to yeah, sure. I'm spending $5 on each beer. I can probably give $5 to some kid who needs
Even if
rice.
only two of the $5 gets to them.
And then
Yeah.
there comes into the church. You go,
Uh,
well, is the church bad? You go, well, if they're taking from this, now they're using it, and who's the CEO or the CFO? Oh, they've got an 80-room place in the Palisades. You go, well, that's
this
you said,
Joel Olstein guy
yeah,
or whatever
yeah,
his name
mega
is,
church. You
right?
go,
Yeah.
that's we should throw the whole thing out. Then the idea of a Red Cross. You go, no, probably not. Probably not. It's there's a tick that's formed on the meat of the animal. The animal's
Resentful's got
good.
in there.
Yeah.
Resentful's got in there, as you and I talked about
Yeah.
before.
And
Yeah,
then
yeah, yeah.
and then the question comes to, well, do you burn the whole thing down and try to maintain the religion, or do you accept the church as an inevitable level of inefficiency that grows on the religion, but it's better to have the religion and have it only working at 40% efficiency because the Red Cross is taking 60%. Well, 40% of 1 million in donations is better than 100% of no donations. So you go, well, do we burn it all down and rebuild it, or do you just allow it to keep going and accept that there's a level of grift, but something still is happening? There's a lot of grift with EBT cards. I'm sure there's a lot of people that you don't see that are legitimately like, thank God I can feed my. Like, I'm sure there's a lot of people that actually feed their kids and they want to get off of it. So then you go, do you throw the whole thing out because there's abuse? Do you try to reform it? Who's going to reform it? Are you going to spend your life reforming it? Or do you accept, like, there is some grift and dishonesty, but ultimately it's probably better than not? And who even has the authority to say, we're going to burn it down?
Or the competence to say.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, you just triggered a thought in me I hadn't really had before. Huh.
Well, it's a tough
I think
thing
I
to think about, to go. I mean, I thought
well,
of it
it's
back when I was
yeah,
pre-med. I
yeah.
was like, I had to read. I think I read most of the Patient Protection and Affordable Care Act, Obamacare. I think I've read most of it because I'm a psychopath and I want to be prepped for med school interviews. But I was super conservative in college too. I ultimately came away with, like, there's a lot of grift, but I think I'd rather 10% of people not be truly, even if it means like 90% are abusing it. And it was like,
I I disagree.
I was also 21
I
when I came to that
disagree.
conclusion. But my
Yeah,
but the
yeah, yeah.
general
And you were
idea,
still drinking at the
yeah,
time.
the general
Yeah,
idea was, I was like, and you would have to have a threshold to go, well, now it's actually causing way too much damage and financial damage to people. But there's a lot of things where it's like, is the guy ringing the bell, is he going to take a 20 out of that? He probably is. But what if 1,000 goes to the local homeless shelter? Like, yeah, I mean, that's,
so I don't care about the VIG, right?
yeah.
Um, I want to go back to the
Or
question you
or
asked,
sorry,
right?
does it
About
metastasize further? Does the Red Cross then start lobbying Congress and shit up, and you're like, well,
Oh,
now
it's
it's a
doing
now
that.
it's a demon.
So
Now it's a
this is
multi-headed
okay. So
hydra.
this is yeah, no. So I think there's a more, and again, you got me thinking about a thing in context of all this I hadn't really actually taken time to think about. And it's, is the religion false? All churches by nature are less than the religion
Yeah.
because they're structured, codified, you know, transmittable systems, which by their nature can't encompass the whole. It's just not the way information theory works, right? Our Markovian systems work. It's not that inefficient churches emerge, it's that anti-humanist, anti-actual religion churches emerge that suborn and supplant all of the religion itself and become not just parasitic, but anti-humanist and anti-divine, right? Because what is, to me, what is the divine? Divine is life,
Mm-hmm.
right? What is the perfect purpose of life? It's not to make money. It's not to worship at the altar of a wealth portfolio. The most miserable people I know in my life are the people who live that way. That's not to say that the most miserable people I know are wealthy. I know some wealthy, very wealthy people, self-made, inherited, right? Who are actually really good, wholesome people. Why? Because they don't worship, they don't adhere to the church,
Yeah.
but they do adhere to the religion. And they do try to do everything they can with the wealth and money they have to help other people.
Yeah.
And I mean that genuinely,
No,
right? They think about it every day. They
no,
they consciously,
I know some
right?
very wealthy people that are incredible parents. They have a ton of money. They play the game. They love the game. But I also know them. These are people that have. I remember Joe Kent. They threw like a fundraiser for him, and
Yeah,
they've done
yeah,
other stuff for like
yeah,
local child trafficking like
yeah,
organization.
yeah.
And if you ask them like why you do it, is and they're just like it's generally make the world a better person or make the world a better place. You go
Leave
that's
something behind better than
you go
I
that's
found
well
it.
that's
Yeah,
pretty.
yeah, yeah.
And you go how do you hate? How can you hate that? Yeah, they got more money than God, but they're doing that. You that well that they can't
So
that can't be a bad person. They're not miserable
no,
people. They
yeah, yeah,
it
yeah,
was with
yeah.
their
So it's
kids. Yeah,
so it's not the wealth or the pursuit of wealth. It's not the religion itself that's wrong. It's the churches like BlackRock and others that we've
yeah,
allowed to rise up.
yeah.
And it's the priest of those churches. And I'm going to tell you, I have a dear friend of mine. He worships at the wrong church. He's Catholic, but if you actually really talk to him, you realize that there is this financial religion. He works with BlackRock and Guggenheim and these others. And he's a good Catholic, but that's not his prime church. His prime church are these financialists.
Yeah.
So it's not the religion. And again, I mean, honestly, since the 1600s, the average that when this religion really was instantiated and supplanted Christianity, standards of living for people from the lowest abject peasant to the king have increased substantially. And the cooperation between states and nations, and the fact that we don't have as much, forgive my language, but is going on with the Five Eyes and everybody else, we actually, as a regular state of being, have dramatically lowered violence levels every year. We don't have warring seasons in our population every year anymore.
I've had on. He's actually coming on again Thursday. Richard Rhodes, author of Making the Atomic Bomb. He's in his 80s now. He's a brilliant.
Mm,
But no, he some of his best books are this on the psychology of violence and his whole thing about it's coming down every year. It has since
yes.
1945.
Steven Pinker talks this. Now he's a little bit naive and et cetera, but one of the greatest
We're
books
doing
ever
something
written
correct.
was Steven Pinker's The Blank Slate and the Modern Denial of Human Nature, right? So this religion, finance religion, has actually done more for humanity than any of the other religions, with some exceptions, et cetera, that we can ever. But where sometime, oh, there's always been bad churches in it,
Well,
right?
there always will
Always.
be.
And there always will be. But where we as a people, as adherents to this belief system, I don't, let's take it away from religion, right? But this belief system that allows us in great numbers of strangers to actually collaborate, where it really got hijacked was starting in the early 1900s and then just took off after World War II when the unhealthy, extractive, parasitic churches took over. That's the Dulles brothers. That's Wall Street. That's the City of London, right? And they've always been playing and doing bad things the last 300-400 years. But the belief system itself, meaning the belief in wealth creation and wealth distribution as a means by which to organize ourselves as a people, is actually demonstrably by far the most belief system that humans have ever produced. And it is a religion. And I'll give you, listen to the crypto bros talk. They're like religious sycophants.
There's a tweet I saw. I think it was meeting Ray Kump because you should get vocal consent before you're allowed to talk about crypto to people. If you get in a cab with someone, they should ask you, "Is it okay if I talk about it?" Because I feel raped.
They're the Jehovah's Witness of the financialist religion, man.
Are you looking
Right?
for an out? Are you
And
looking
and
for a
and the
100,000
Bitcoiners are
X?
like the Church of Scientology or something,
And he's like,
right?
Jesus Christ, yeah.
So I don't know that the religion's wrong. I don't know the belief system, right? But it's adhered to like a religion. That's why, so it's a belief system. Finance, capital, money. I spent the last 30 years in it, in the guts of it, in the heart of it. I left it. I felt so dirty about it. I had to go to war and kill people to feel better about myself.
Yeah.
Right. And then I come back and I realize, oh, no, actually, it wasn't the belief system itself that I felt bad about. It was the people I was working with and the churches I was working with. Right.
Well, it's. I think I've said it to you before. It's when I was in college. Like I rarely drank. It was super straight edge, militant. Just all I did, and it was
Yeah. Yeah.
to get into med school.
Yeah.
And then I threw it all out the window because I was like, I'm so miserable. And then that mixed with losing your brother was just a 1-2 punch of just throw it all out the
Yeah.
window.
Yeah.
And it took me 2014. It took me. I started the podcast roughly 2020. It took me 6 years to finally realize I'd thrown out an operating system because I associated it with the
Because it
church,
didn't
but
work.
now
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
back on, and I have since the podcast. I go, it is good to have like a set sleep schedule. It's very good to watch your calories and exercise. It's good. I don't have to take classes anymore, but I read. It's good to learn and all the things I used to do. But the difference is I know not to go 99%. I know to go 80%
Follow,
and enjoy some
follow,
life.
follow the belief system.
But
Follow
my
the tenets of the religion, but not the churches that are used to tear us apart, that are
and
used to extract from us.
that's my
Yeah.
point. Is sometimes you have to completely throw it away to go.
Yeah.
It's not all bad. It's
Yeah.
not all bad. It's
No.
good. It's good to have to be so. For me personally, it's just good to me to have to be somewhere. When I have a show, it's like an organizing. It's a gravitational pull that tautens all the lines, and I go. I got to get up at a
Okay,
certain
so
point. I got to go to the
let's put
gym.
it this way. Let's put it this way. Tommy has to follow a healthy lifestyle in order to pay the bills so that he can do a show where he can bring on, thinkers across a whole lot of dimensions that help people understand the world they're living in. So adhering to the religion
It's a
of
good
having
thing.
to pay your bills is actually bringing a great, immense good to the world. So the religion, honestly, I mean this genuinely. The religion, I think this is what Joseph Campbell was talking about. We've just never really seen it that way because of the unhealthy churches that really took off in the 80s, 70s and 80s with the leverage buyouts, et cetera, which was just perversion of the concepts and ideas of capitalism and finance. But the religion itself, the finance religion itself, is not wrong. It's done more for humanity. You know, we've raised more people as a percentage, not as a number, but as a percentage out of poverty in the last 40 years than has ever been raised out of poverty before, ever. And not by a little bit, but by a lot. So maybe the religion isn't wrong, and maybe we don't need to go to war with finance and technology and business. Maybe the enemy is the churches that we've allowed to prop up that are parasitically living off of all of us, having hijacked the concepts and ideas and principles of the religion. Because Christianity, and again, I'm not here to pick a fight with Christians, if you're a Christian, etc., but the finance religion, how many of the people that adhere to the finance religion are Christians? It kind of started with Christians, right? So it's not like these two things are actually antithetical to one another. The core principles and ideas of financialism, or the financialist religion, come directly out of Christianity, right? They come out of the best aspects. Now, also, unfortunately, then, the worst aspects come out of it as well, directly, in the form of these churches, right? And that's who we're at war with. We're at the war with the churches. And I'm not, unfortunately, we follow, you know, there's the subset that's followed this guy, Marx, who was the first, you know, the Martin Luther of the financialist religion, right? And he put up his whatever effing number of theses on the door. And how many hundreds of millions of people have died following that? The Protestantism of, right? A lot of what he was saying, though, because we were starting to see this corruption in these, you know, financial institutions, et cetera, in the late 1700s and early 1800s. A lot of what Marx was saying was right. Sorry, I got cat hair now
No,
because
you're good.
my daughter's cat's in my lap.
No, you're good.
A lot of what Marx was saying was right, but Marx was resentful. In, you know, in the conversation you and I had about the eternal war before, he was resentful. Well, we need to hear, and I think we're hearing people saying it, right? I believe that we are fighting back now against the church, the European church, continental European church of the financialist religion. This isn't about going back to Christianity. This isn't going back to, you know, being Luddites. This isn't about, we don't get to go back. That's not the way the second law of thermodynamics works. The financialist religion is solid. It is the best thing we've done yet so far. It is the best way to organize and coordinate and have morale, you know, morals and value, to share, to contribute, to, right? To bring in as many people into the infinite game as possible. The problem is we are almost totally and absolutely controlled by evil, malevolent churches that have hijacked it. And these churches are in the form of these investment banks and these private equity funds and these hedge funds and these, right?
Which is inevitable.
Which is inevitable. That's the eternal war, right? That's,
and it also doesn't mean throw out the whole thing. You just gotta tweak it. Hey, tell
correct.
everyone where to find your Twitter. I gotta go piss, fill up my water bottle, and get a blanket because it's cold as.
Yeah. EM Burlingame at Twitter is probably the best one. I'm also on LinkedIn, rarely there, but there. And then emburlingame.substack.com is where I'm doing a lot of the deeper articles, etc. And then I'm doing the Azarone Burns novel where I go into all these concepts and ideas much more deeply.
Heaven's Harvest Prepper Food. 72 servings per pail, 25 years shelf life. I've had the owner Clayton on the show before. He's a God-fearing, America-loving patriot. Get one of these, get a couple of them, throw them in your basement. It's good to have it, not need it, than to need it and not have it. If you don't want to do that, you can get their seeds. You can plant your own garden, so you don't even have to keep buying them. You can just get the goods and start your own, or you can even get freeze-dried fruits and vegetables like bananas, apples, strawberries, and raspberries. They support the show. It's an honest product. It's a good safety measure to have, and they keep my show free for you. So I'd implore you guys to please go to heavensharvest.com, use the link in the description, promo code TPC. Axios Fitness Coaching is a premium resource for holistic strength and conditioning services. Axios is best known for the Training Club, capital T, capital C, an exclusive community that prioritizes accountability, technique, diet, and nutrition. Everything you need to do to take action against the decay of the modern world. Whether you're looking to improve your physique, build strength, or just take care of your health and fitness, Axios will provide you with a solution that is effective and simple to execute. All you need to do is complete the intake survey, and you can see if you're a good candidate for the training club or any other of the services. And it's going to sponsor the show. So, one company falls off, another one arises. So if you guys like the show, you want to work out, throw the show a couple shekels. Go take the survey. Thank you so much, guys.
Higher ultraviolet exposure is associated with lower mortality. The United Kingdom is a high latitude and low sunlight country. Researchers there collected data on over 360,000 participants in a study of UV exposure via solarium use. When compared with non-users, solarium users had 15% risk lowered of all-cause mortality, 23% lower risk of cardiovascular mortality, 14% lower risk of cancer mortality, and a 12% lower risk of non-cardiovascular, non-cancer mortality. In other words, all other causes. Quoting the researchers, our study adds to the growing evidence that the benefits of UV exposure outweigh the risks in low sunlight environments. A link to the original publication is available in the box below the video. Get some UV light this winter. Immerse yourself in the tranquility of the blue. Visit a Blue Room soon. www.blueroom.com.
I think that's just something that you kind of have to deal with. Is like, I read a book a couple months ago about, I think, yeah, Elon Musk by Walter Isaacson, and it's pretty. I don't know when it was written. It was pretty good, but I thought it was interesting the way Elon Musk would talk about, like, boosting efficiency and whatever the it was, PayPal, Tesla, SpaceX, and it was you're not pulling the fat off correctly if you don't end up putting back around 20% of what you pulled off. In the same way, right, with like tier 1 training, it is actually good that someone dies every couple of years, because it means you are at the edge of creating warriors.
And you learn something in their death that you didn't pick up before that had been lost.
And
So
but
when I was in
but
investment
that's
banking,
sorry.
yeah,
So
go ahead,
but
yeah.
there is something about that to where that is part of moving things forward. Because if you take off a little bit and it's all good, well, then you have to go, wait, should we maybe have taken more off? It's only when you really tear and slash and you go, you got to put that piece back. We needed that. But that's how you know you got all of it. I think that's something that comes with a system like this, is like, you probably got to slash and burn. And you probably got to slash and burn to the point where you go, maybe we need to put some of those back. We do need a bank. I think we'd all go, just like, I just imagine all the bankers are hanging, and we're like, we did 10 years without bankers. I think we probably need a couple bankers. You go, okay, yeah, I'll admit that we maybe went too far, and put a couple back.
You're gonna have to forgive me, but for the first time in indoor shows, I have to go to the bathroom at this
Go for
point.
it, dude. I'll vamp.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't care. Go for it.
But if you might, talk about resentfuls and how resentfuls take over systems.
Yeah, go for it. Yeah.
because it's not like you have to destroy the system, but maybe sometimes you got to remove the resentful. So forgive me,
Yeah, no,
guys.
no,
I
you're good.
gotta,
No,
yeah,
I'll
yeah,
bet on that.
yeah.
Yeah, no, in terms of resentfuls taking over a system, I think that's actually that it's a net. I would even go so far as to say it's a necessary part. You want something that's foolproof, and you got to have something like I don't know. Let's just take CPS, Child Protective Services. And, okay, it's probably a good thing. I'm sure there's a ton of abuse. I'm sure not everyone loses their kids deserve. I would imagine that you probably look at it and go, yeah, that arose from a need from it, and it's probably good. You got some meth head mom or alcoholic beating that you go, it's probably. I saw a video the other week about these parents being arrested for neglect because the kids were in this room just covered in shit. And you're like, yeah, no, CP, you probably do need it. Now, is there abuse? Are there people trafficking kids? Are there people grifting from the payments used to raise the kids? Sure. But that's going to happen with any system. And depending on how proactive you want to be, you could even look at that as a good thing and go, well, now we need to fine hone it. Now we need to plug up the gaps. Now, okay, we got to do background checks. Everybody signing up for CPS foster homes, hey, they aren't all good. And you figure that out. And then the that want to take control of it they're going to get better at passing background checks. But it's a back and forth, but their selection pressure is pushing it forward. And if it's a good thing, ultimately, it will survive. The system itself will survive. So it should be of no surprise that hey, yeah, the evil that want to do evil, yeah. Again, I always say this: you pedophiles don't roll up to a school and say, "Hey, I'm going to kidnap you." They roll up with candy and puppies. It's so it is a
Right.
it is a good it's a regardless if it's a good or bad thing, it's a thing. In any system, you're going to have people grifting, you're going to have people abusing,
Yes.
but
Yeah.
it doesn't mean throughout the whole system. And as I was saying when you were gone, depending on how optimistic or you know proactive you want to be, you could even look at it. The example I used with Child Protective Services, it's not all bad. It's you do need it. There are people that grift the money, or worse, there are pedophiles and human traffickers. Doesn't mean throw it all out. What it does mean is you got to fine hone it. All right, maybe you got to do some background checks. Everyone signing up
Yep.
for foster kids,
Yep.
they're not
Yep.
100% saints. I'm sure there are a lot of saints, but there's no way that you. So it's either we throw out the whole system or we don't. We have this issue. Now there's two ways to look at it. Say, oh, woe is me, or we go, hey, let's make the system. Let's fine hone it even better. You got to do a background check now, and
I
it's
grew up.
with
I
everything
grew
you'll
up
have.
in the foster care system,
There you go. I didn't know that. There you go.
right? And I was adopted. I became a Burlingame because of the foster care system in a great family, an actually truly great family, an old family, right? So you're absolutely right. I also know other kids in the foster care system who had horrible experiences,
I know a chick my age
right?
who did, and Richard Rhodes is coming on Thursday. He was in a horrible foster back in I don't know
Oh, I had bad
50,
ones
40 to the
too.
50s.
Oh,
Yeah, no,
yeah,
no,
yeah,
horrible.
yeah,
Well,
yeah, yeah,
he and
yeah,
his brother like ran away.
yeah. In fact, the worst one, and again, this isn't a picking on the Christians, but the
I don't
worst
give a
foster
shit,
homes
dude.
I ever had were uber Christian.
I'm sure.
Worst, abusive. So back to the eternal war conversation you and I had, a month or so ago when I was traveling. Resentfuls are always looking for systems of power, extractive systems that they can rise up inside of.
And they will forever, and that's
Inevitably. So then we have to go through these periodic times where we root them out and we burn them out.
yes,
But we
yes.
don't follow Ridley's advice from we go back up to space and nuke them because it's the only way.
That never worked. So I was just
A
thinking,
little aliens
there
reference, right?
there's two ways to look
Yeah.
at resentfuls in a system. You can be resentful and resent the resentfuls, or you can go, hey, they actually did something that normally you pay good money for. They red selled it for you.
Yes. Yeah. No,
So
no.
how do you want to be?
Brilliant.
Yeah,
Because what the resentfuls want you is resentful of them
yeah.
because that's more
And burn the
resentment.
whole thing down.
Burn it all down. No, no, no. It actually works pretty well. We've raised more human beings out of abject poverty from deepest peasants to kings and elevated the standard of living for everybody in ways that most people don't even think about because they're being told to pay attention to differences that don't really freaking matter. You're living in an okay home and you got food and you got shelter and you got energy and you've got a cell phone, you got entertainment, and you can go spend some time with your friends. Holy cow. How many kings live that way? How many kings live the way our poorest people live
None.
300 years ago, 400 years ago? I mean, are you kidding me?
My apartment's climate controlled. Do you know how like black magic advanced that is?
Right?
Oh, it's
So
summer. I wish it was winter.
wasn't Christianity did that.
Exactly.
Again,
So it's
not to
a,
pick on
yeah, I don't
Christianity
give.
because,
You can pick on whatever the f- you want. I don't give a shit.
well, it's not. I'm not in that place, right? I get it. I was educated in it. I also grew up Zen Buddhist, right? It's not about. It's not a. The thing about the financialist religion is that it's not. You will not find. Well, I don't know. That's actually true. If you adhere to hard-earned wealth creation potential and availability to anybody, you will find a connection to the divine in that. But the financialist system, the financialist belief system, in and on its own, is not going to connect you into the divine. You're going to have to find that on your own. But you won't have to worry about all these other things in life that prevent you from the pursuit of connecting to the divine.
Well, but precisely, it's you know, will the system help get rid of a lot of stresses? Yeah, I would look at someone like my dad and be like, yeah, I would think so. You know, 7 kids to a bed to raising 4 kids that go to private
Yeah.
school and mom
Yeah.
gets to take care of them because dad's the breadwinner. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's pretty good. Now, are you gonna
Yeah.
find that in that alone? No. No,
No.
you can. Well, I got $1 billion. If at 2 billion, I'll find happy. No,
No.
but it's not it's not a bad thing, and it's at the end it comes down to the whole throwing it all. It's like I often like I'm so hyper focused and tunnel visioned on just podcast. Sometimes I have to stop and go, what would you do? You woke up tomorrow, you had 100 million subscribers. What would you actually? I'd be like, oh, I did it. And I'd be like, and then what would you do? Well, I'd keep doing the shows I do because I legitimately enjoy them. But I'm like, I immediately the first thing I do is like, I would have on, I would really blast like the guys I have on that, you know, rescue traffic kids. I'm like, something's got to come
Oh,
from it.
yeah.
And
Yeah.
what would I do with
Yeah.
the money? I'm like, I'd probably buy a home. I'd probably really start, you know, trying to find a girlfriend or I'm like, okay, there you go. So I know what I want to do. I'm like, you know, I want to build a hospital, name it after my brother. I want to do X, Y, and Z. There's a lot of shit. I'm like, okay, there it is. If I don't have an answer to that question, if I'm like, what would you do with 1 million? I'm like, or 1 billion? I'm like, buy a gold Lamborghini. I'm like, no, that's you're chasing the wrong. You're a dog and you're chasing the wrong bone. Like you might enjoy the pursuit for the pursuit's sake, and that's fine. But understand, you're going to get to an empty room. There is no fanfare. So I always make
Okay.
sure I ask myself. I go, $1 billion today. What would immediately? I make sure I'm able to not even have to think about it. I want family. I want to take care of my own family, my extended family. There's philanthropy I want to do through medical, through
Yeah.
helping Baz and the guys at the Association for the Recovery of Children. I'm like, okay, keep going. You're chasing the right bone.
So I fundamentally agree with what you just said. I fundamentally agree. Financialism as a belief system came out of early Christianity. And there was a lot of early Christianity was really solid stuff to this day, right? Like, yeah, and forgive me, you know, what was it? Passing through the eye of a needle, right? It's easier
It's
for
easier for a camel to pass the eye of a needle than it is for a rich man to
a
enter the gates
rich
of
person to
heaven.
get into heaven. It was the lady who had, you know, who gave 10% of her, you know, her 2 denarii as
Versus the woman
opposed
that had
to,
two coins and gave both or gave one.
right, right.
Yeah.
So there's, if you look at financialism and you look at the early days of it, in really even going back 1,000 years to Venice and then Florence and then Amsterdam's the next great representation. After that, it gets really, actually Amsterdam, we probably can't do that. But if you look at the early days in Venice and Florence in particular, they were big patrons of the arts. And those arts weren't self-glorification like Amsterdam's artwork, which was glorification of the wealthy living, et cetera. No, it was glorification of the concepts and ideas of Christianity, not Christianity itself, but the core tenets and concepts and ideas of humanism, of humanity, of the divine and humans walking with the divine. Well, that was very wealthy people, very wealthy financialists, the inventors of financialism. And no, it wasn't the Jews, everybody.
The Jews.
So, oh, I'm so tired of the Jews.
It's mentally lazy. Expand your mind and understand that
It is
evil can
so
come.
lazy.
I would say this to me and my Jewish buddy Drew Bob will joke about it. I'd be like, no, I do think that the Jews are evil, and I think every country has an evil
Every
apex.
people,
Yeah,
every people has
child
evil.
trafficking, blackmail, and making war for money is not the exclusive providence of the Jews. I'd say that the home
Well,
team
I
does it
say
pretty
this.
well.
We've been enslaving, raping, and murdering each other for thousands of years before we ever heard of a thing called a Jew.
It is the most multicultural thing we have are the demons that run the planet. From every walk of life, Asian, South American,
But the
Anglo-Saxon, it's
resentfuls.
the
The
most.
problem is that they're resentfuls, and
I know,
resentfuls
but it
are
is funny. It's like
everybody in every family.
it is the most multicultural, woke, inclusive group are the pedophile demons that run the planet.
But they don't. That's actually okay. So this is great. No, no, no. This is actually great. You tied into something else we should touch on. Um, the people who run the planet are not Satanists. They're not pedophiles. That's the screen. If I'm the hidden church, not the religion, but I'm the hidden church that's running the world. I want you thinking about Satanists. I want you chasing pedophiles. I want you doing all of that. And I want to make sure that they're real. But those aren't our people. That's not our people. One, because that's a threat, because humanity might actually turn against that. And two, anybody who's dumb enough to think that that's a way to gain actual real power in the world is somebody who should be destroyed.
I've always thought that the Satanist pedophile cultists are probably not even upper class, but they're lower apex class. They're the ones I think the ones
They
at the
tend
top.
to be historically, and these are the same ones that do the quote unquote secret societies, et cetera.
They're the
tend to
Illuminati
be,
trust fund kids or the young up
well,
and
they tend to be
comers.
upper middle class and lower upper class kids
The ones who run the
who
world,
think
they're
that they
like,
can change their status in that
yeah.
hierarchy through this thing. And it's like, you don't realize we made that up. So you all
Yeah,
go
just
do that
imagine
'cause
the
you're stupid
trillionaires
and
looking at
yeah.
like an eyes wide shut mass, and they're like, "That's got compromat written all over it." They're not stupid. They're not
No,
stupid. They're looking at that and
no,
they're going, "You go." The really good ones, they're like, hey, "I'm not going to Epstein Island. Are you kidding me? Eat
no,
a dick." But I need
no.
y'all to go
No,
because
no,
you're a
no.
good
You go ahead
screen.
because that might help you out. Go ahead.
No, no, it's a very
That's a
good screen for
test.
me for you guys to go there. Yeah,
Bing, 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 bing,
yeah,
bing, bing. Right?
yeah. No,
So, yeah, anybody who thinks that that's the right. There's a saying in Special Forces and the Green Berets, you're always being assessed. And it's true because there's always higher level work, there's always higher level society, there's
hmm
always, right? There's always layers and layers and layers getting to actual power.
I imagine that'd be a good thing if you're really at the apex. I would imagine that would be a decent filter. If you saw some young up and coming trust fund intelligence asset who made a couple billion, and you see through your nodes that he turned down Epstein's island, you go, that guy's, bring him in. He's got a head
Well,
on his shoulders.
let's check him in other ways,
Oh
right?
yeah,
Let's
well, let's
assess
keep
him in other
let's
ways.
keep probing him till you go,
But
dude.
he's okay. So
That's a promising asset.
Tommy,
Yeah.
you just okay. It's called appetites. We
Yeah.
call them appetites. And somebody who passes through the appetites filter, which is usually from early 30s, career-wise, early 30s into their early 50s. Anybody, for men, for women, it's a little bit different. But anybody who passes successfully through the appetites phase, but still succeeds in life, right? Still rises up and demonstrates capacities. Well, you just went through the hardest filter. There's more filters.
Is it?
But you just went through the
not-
most easy filter for people to fail. Now, it's not so easy because it gets more and more complex. Because, by the way, it's not just the pedophilia stuff, right? It's not just the sexual stuff. There's a whole lot of other ways. There are a whole lot of other appetites that people have that they fail. Fame, career progression, academic recognition, money, right? There's all these other appetites filters that are not just the sexual stuff. And this is why, as much as we need to fight, human trafficking and sexual trafficking as much as we can, because it's real and it's a big deal. There are all kinds of other ways in which people pursue their appetites and they are compromised that we also need to look at that have nothing to do with that. And oh, by the way, these people tend to be the ones that actually rise up into positions of authority and power. Why? Because they're not compromisable in those ways. They're compromised in far more difficult to work out and ascertain kind of ways because they actually produce something. They actually create something.
Is it the Odyssey? What's the
The Iliad and the Odyssey?
Yeah, what's the one where they're on the journey and they get stuck on the island with the sirens for like 30 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's how I always think about that.
Odyssey.
I'm like, yeah, it's got to be one of the paths on the way up of you're making it, and then it's just horrors and pleasure. And it's like, yeah, I bet that's a difficult one because you probably don't even look at it as a test. You go, I made it. Versus if you kept going, you could go even farther.
Okay, well, hold on a second. So you might pass the whore test.
Yeah, but then there's
fame. And you may
there's
fail
respect.
the other test. Right? And you're just as compromised.
Yeah. You want to be, this, that, or the other thing. But then
you want to know, the people who go for the whore test know at some point they might be outed, right? Or the pedophilia test, etc. And so they're always the lower level ones. The ones that are really dangerous are judges and CEOs and professors and entertainers, famous actors, etc., who didn't fail the whore test, but failed the fame test or the academic research funding test or the career progression test, because they're not compromised in the low-level ways that will raise righteous indignation from people. They're compromised in ways that are almost impossible to get people to be angry about.
Well, and then there's ways of like, I think it was Dave McGowan, Weird Scenes Inside the Canyon. It's a pretty good book, but like one of his things, he's like, Woodstock was an MK Ultra thing. There's loud music and lights, and it's like
drugs.
Yeah, but it's like that's also a concert. Like sometimes the two overlap, and they're not.
Yeah.
I went to a lot of crazy parties in college. They weren't MK Ultra festivals or honeypots. They were just a bunch of retarded 20-year-olds doing coke and breaking shit. Like they're not always. So you could even say if you don't have the the whore appetite or the fame, you want your name on all the publications. That kind of seems like what Anthony Fauci was dealing in. it might also be it's like that's a guy who just wants power and get to the very top, and it's like, is it an appetite or is that just a winner? Like it's hard to say like that. It's because they're not always the same. Some people it's like he doesn't have horse. He has a wife and he has a steady family. What is his game? He's an operator. It's like he might be a dude that just kind of
Yeah. So,
has a
okay. So
code.
very good. No,
You
no,
know, they're not.
Tommy,
It's not always like what is he
very
scheming?
good.
Like
So
Pootie You know
maybe,
Pie.
no, I don't.
He's before my time or after my time.
Oh,
He
PewDiePie or whatever it
PewDiePie. He was a
was.
first.
Yeah,
He was
yeah, yeah, yeah,
the
yeah,
original
yeah, yeah.
game streamer. Got up to 100 million something subscribers. Made I think like $1 billion, and he just tapped out. Has a wife. Has a baby. He's just gone. Every once in a while, you see somebody finds a picture of him, and he's just holding a baby, and he's got a
Yeah,
pregnant
yeah,
wife,
yeah.
and it's
People
like
are like, whatever happened to? And then they see, yeah, yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah,
you could
yeah.
look at that and be like, he avoided the fame and the money and the horse. What's his game? It's like it might just be a dude that wanted a wife and kids. Like
Okay, okay, okay. So Tommy, again, brilliant Irishman that you are, okay? You just got right to it, okay? What do resentfuls do? This is one of the games that the resentfuls players that are taking. There are people out there in the world who are adherents to the religion who are just really faithful people.
just good people. What's
They're
his
just
game?
good people. They're just very faithful, and they adhere to the principles and the ideas of the religion, and they do great things in their own life and for people. Okay, well, what do resentfuls have to do?
They can't
They
wrap their
gotta
minds around that.
they can't. That's absolutely right because they don't have that capacity. Two, they have to dirty that in some way. And how do they do that? They do it with it's like being at church. And there's some church lady, well, there's some church estrogen, whether it's in a woman or a male,
Oh god.
that sells little innuendos and little stories and right, little ways to diminish the person who's in church who's actually faithful. That's what they do. They got to convince you, and this is the thing I've immense respect. I won't use certain names, but certain names you and I both know, people we both know, who are all, child trafficking and all this horrible shit. It is really bad. It's very genuine. It's got to be dealt with. I know people who do that work. And I've run across these things myself in one of my careers, right? Crushingly, crushingly. But that's only one aspect.
Mm-hmm.
That's only one aspect, and it's got to be taken on. It's got to be dealt with. But to think that that is the only way in which the religion and the adherents to the religion are corrupted
It's the
or
ton.
suborned
It's the
is
tonsillectomy. It's a good thing. That
gotta happen.
you're not gonna fix the whole world. But hey, thank God you got a guy like
Yeah,
Baz
well,
or
maybe you got
Dale
an
that do this
appendix
shit.
problem.
Yeah, but it's like it's not a bad thing. You're like, no, you do need that.
No, no, no,
Some
no.
guys they hang their hat on it. They go, I'm a former Green Beret or Delta, and I'm hunting pedophiles and rescuing kids.
Yeah,
You don't need to worry about like the global fight. You keep doing that. You're doing the Lord's
you do
work.
that.
That's a
You
good
do
place to
that.
hang your hat.
You
Do as
do
much
that.
damage to him
But
as you
don't
can.
think that that's the
But it's not the
only
end all be all.
don't think that's the only vector of
Yeah,
attack to the body,
yeah. People need more than tonsillectomies. Yeah,
right? Maybe there's cancer.
yeah,
Maybe it's metastasized into your lymph nodes.
yeah.
Maybe you've got kidney problems or liver problems or right? The human organism, I don't mean just the human body, but the human organism, life is unreal complex and it's under attack from all kinds of vectors. The most effective way to organize ourselves that we've ever developed and which did come out of Venice and Florence and you know got corrupted by the time it got to Amsterdam, then the city of London, and then Wall Street. Even though corrupted, it still has done immense, right? The most effective way we've been able to find to coordinate ourselves as a species in all this complex space is this financialist religion. But it is riddled through with cancer. It's riddled through with parasites. It's riddled through with churches that have popped up that are corrupting all of it. It's not the religion that has to go away. It's not the religion that we have to throw out. Marx was a cuck, right? I mean, actually, quite literally, look at his life, etc., and his wife and married.
He's a miserable fuck.
Marx was a penultimate resentful. Marx was wrong, but he wasn't wrong about everything. He was right about, again, proscription,
yeah.
not prescription. This is like Michael Hudson. You know, Dr. Michael Hudson. I have immense respect for Dr. Michael Hudson. His proscriptions, going back all the way back to the Egyptians and the Sumerians, etc., is unreal good. His prescription is Marxist. We shouldn't follow that shit, right? So Christianity was replaced in the 1600s by financialism. And maybe that wasn't the wrong thing. And maybe that's exactly what Joseph Campbell, Dr. Joseph Campbell, was talking about in the Power of Myth series in the 80s. But maybe we let it get corrupted. Maybe we allowed some churches to develop in there that are really anti-humanist and that are really antithetical to the religion itself. That's the financialist kill chain I've written about extensively over the last couple of weeks, etc. But it's not finance itself that's wrong. Finance itself, you know, derivatives, synthetic instruments, insurance, all these, you know, hypothecated financing, etc., right? Lending. These things have done more to raise more people out of poverty and slavery than all other things combined ever in human history.
It can't be all bad.
Can't be all bad.
Yeah.
It can't even be majority bad.
No, that's the wrong terminology. It doesn't mean that you can't cherry pick and look at some evil examples.
It's not even cherry picking. It's a matter of, let's take a step back and look at what we've accomplished over the last 400 years. Let's look at how the standards of living for people in the remotest communities has improved. And then let's also take a step back and look at how have parasites in our own communities, in our own societies, etc., parasitically lived off of that and have dirtied the concepts and ideas of that such that we're now at a place where we're ready to take on a fight where we tear it all down. The very thing that made the fact that you and I, right,
Yeah.
two friends are sitting here on the opposite side of a huge freaking continent having a conversation over video, right? With access to any information we'd ever want. And we're not the uber wealthy. We're not, we're not some,
No, this is
1/10 of 1% populace.
This is baseline, yeah.
This is baseline,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, you can't. It is undeniably good. It doesn't mean that it can't be fine honed. But it's undeniably. It's like what Clay and I said on an episode. We were like, yeah, I'm not naive. I don't think Donald Trump gives a shit about me. He's a billionaire, thrice married president with a fake tan. I don't think Elon and Bezos think about me either. I don't think that they're pure evil. I look at it as like, here's some guys that they want to make some trillions. They want American empire, go to space, ego, got it. The other side is vocally saying, I will live in a pod and eat the bugs and own nothing, and my kids will have no genitals. I don't think that Trump and Elon and Bezos give a shit about. I'm not an idiot. I understand that they're on a bigger level. They're more in line with me. They want the country to survive, and hey, so do I. They want a ton of wealth, which, hey, hopefully will trickle down to me, and I can have a fit. I'm not naive. I don't think they're sitting there looking out for me. Trump has a gold penthouse. I'm aware of that. I'm not an idiot. But the other side openly, verbatim, says you're going to eat bugs and live in a pod.
And I'm going to cut your dick off.
And what's the other one? And new experts say like life doesn't need to be fulfilling and death can be welcome. It's like, hey, you're not exactly making it a difficult choice. It's you know, it's
okay, Tommy, I'm with you.
So yeah, my point is like, is there a lot of bad in finance? Yeah, there sure is. Statistically, the number of people not getting raped to
most
death
of that is error.
I know, but it's like
malice.
It's like,
right?
but how? The one thing I always point to is this: when I want food, I go to the local store about a mile away, and I take a little plastic card out of my pocket, and I put it in a machine. It beeps, and I take home fresh chicken that's regulated. There's no salmonella. I have fruit, vegetables, maybe get some melatonin or a Gatorade, maybe get a little snack too. And what do I do when I leave? Do me and the other guys have a standoff and my mercenaries look at their mercenaries and they let me by? No, I walk out of sliding doors. This isn't a bad system. A lot of places, it is, like beginning of Black Hawk Down. You do get mowed down by a mounted 50 cal if you want some rice. This can't be a bad system. Doesn't mean it can't be enhanced. But like, that alone is...
So...
I don't have to roll up to Hannaford with Dale and Clay.
Slightly different context, all right? I don't care if the guys at the top of the system need their next $10 billion to sleep with the next most beautiful woman that they've ever slept with in their life before.
Go for it. Do I care?
Right? I don't care.
Because do I care what the horse is pulling my chariot or thinking about?
For them to earn that next $10 billion, they probably unlock $300 to $400 billion in value.
Yeah.
They create X number of new billionaires and a whole lot of centimillionaires and a whole bunch of millionaires and thousands of, I've said this, I think I don't remember what conversation I was having, but it was like, I think it might have been with you actually, but think about Elon Musk. How many billionaires, and not in the financial markets, but as employees?
Yeah.
How many billionaires, centimillionaires, and millionaires is Elon Musk alone created?
Yeah.
And how many companies and corporations and jobs and employees and families and retirements and everything else have been created by those people?
Yeah.
Okay? Now, the Larry Finks of the world and some of these other folks, these parasitic churches that have risen up in the financialist religion, those are enemy. Those are verboten. Those have got to go. But it doesn't mean that it doesn't mean that our current priests and princes who are staunch adherents to the religion are wrong. It doesn't mean that the religion's wrong.
It was like when I worked at we've talked about this before at the bar episode, I worked at Secrets in Ocean City, Maryland, gigantic mega bars. The first,
I know, long ago. Yeah.
It's the owner. I think his name was Clayton, if I remember. I worked there summer 2011.
I think so. Yeah.
He would pull up in his private jet boat every night with legitimate mercs, and they would come in. They'd get all the like a movie. They get the suitcases of cash, and he owned a private island. All's whores. And if you looked at that guy and said, "Is that? Do you think he's your homie?" No, I'm no idiot. They'd shoot me if I went near the money. That guy also employed about 200 summer like me who wanted to be bouncers, a lot of full-time security employees. He also every year updated and outfitted all the squad cars for the police force. He paid for all of he out of his pocket, I think, matched the insurance for like a fallen officer or a fallen firefighter. It was used to buy clout. Okay. What do you want, man?
In the historical world of dukes and earls and barons and viscounts, it was called patronage.
Yeah.
And it's what we did.
Do I want him dating my mom? No, but
it's a bad thing.
No,
if he's a mob boss, that's a different thing, right? Because that's buying favor.
Yeah, is he trafficking kids? Okay, well now there's an issue.
Yeah.
No, he had a
thing.
Yeah,
we got princes. We got princes who are faithful adherents to the religion. And guess what? Just like old princes, They're pretty damn good princes.
Hey, you know what? And well, he's all these bad. Is he extracting the money? Where'd you get the money from? He gets the money from a bar that you voluntarily went
Willing
to buy drinks
participation
in.
in a
Shut the
financial
up.
transaction.
Shut the up. It's not even
Yeah.
that he's beating everyone over the head and you got to go through his men to, go different
It's the
counties.
only bar in Baltimore.
No,
in
it's
the Baltimore region.
no.
Yeah.
What do
Yeah.
you like? What more do you want? And if you take away from the ability of that guy to do that, do you think that the guys who are really good at rising to the top of a system are gonna be deterred by you creating some new Marxist utopia? You think that those operate? You think that H.W. Bush, that Rockefeller, that Carnegie, you don't think that they would have risen? Throw them in a Soviet system, give them 10 years, they'll all be at the top.
Oh,
You don't think they would be the oligarchs?
even more dead than they already have.
Exactly.
I want to go back
Yeah.
to secrets though, okay? Because there's a key here, okay? There are, and again, this is a conversation I had with Tom, and again, thank you for making the introduction, by the way.
Of course.
Okay. There are people that come along later and corrupt it all, the resentful.
Of course.
They don't create anything, they don't build anything, they financialize things. And this goes back to the leverage buyout days. The people that the religion itself of finance is actually the best organizational structure we've ever figured out as a human species. It's done more for people all over the world, in even the most poorest communities in the remotest corner of the world, than anything else has ever even thought about. The problem is that it has a susceptible weakness, and the susceptible weakness is the ability for leveraged buyouts, for individuals to come in and leverage up debt to buy up assets at forced pennies on the dollar, and then to carve up and parse up those assets for themselves so they get fees, etc., that are people that didn't create anything. They just come along with finance and money. And the 34 Act, the 33 Act, Glass-Steagall, etc., tried to stop this a century ago and did a fairly good job of it. And then in the 1990s, we did a bunch of deregulation. And as much as I like Reagan and Thatcher, they are the ones that set this up, by the way. Okay. So in the 1930s, early 1930s, by the mid 1930s, we'd done a pretty good job regulatory wise, structure wise, of countering these financialists, right? These evil priest of the church of finance, right? Of the evil churches of finance. But by the 1990s, those regulations had mostly been undone. It's time for, and Dodd-Frank and Sarbanes-Oxley, et cetera, were not ways to restore the old restrictures, legal strictures on, right? Restoring the church, restoring the religion of finance to the religion and getting rid of or preventing unhealthy, bad churches from hijacking it. That deregulation has started in the 80s into the 1990s, only allowed these unhealthy churches, these evil churches to come in, these evil priests to come in and hijack the religion. We've got to reverse this. We've got to restore the, and I suspect, I don't quite hear it, but I do suspect there are some of the oligarchs, some of the princes who do actually realize this and are actually trying to get us there. The problem is it isn't the oligarchs and princes who write the rules. It's management. What do you think Congress is? You think they're at the top? Congress is management. And they're middle management at best.
Until it hits kind of I don't know, a pressure bubble that we're kind of seeing now. You could maybe say now in 2016 till now, where you do start to see these major shifts. It's almost like CEOs coming into town and being like, why am I visiting this location? Like, why the do I have to come down here? And I think that's kind of what we're seeing now.
Well,
And
I'm gonna
even
touch
back
the
to the
burning.
for the
Yeah.
people that are, just addicted to being nihilists, sad life, but to throw them a bone, like, yeah, no, I would look and be like, well, Trump and Elon, they're not doing this. They're doing this because they want to line. Hey, if them lining their pockets means they look at the U.S. and go, hey, we gotta make sure that the people are employed or they're gonna revolt. I'm okay with that Venn diagram. I don't give a shit. Why do you think Henry Ford lowered the work week? It's because they realized they were more efficient that way. What does it
Well,
matter?
he unlocked unreal wealth by doing
And
that.
he also doubled their wages. I'm reading a book about Calvin Coolidge right
And
now, and
gave
it's
health
like
care and retirement.
he only did it for his own ego. I don't care.
Yeah.
I don't give a shit.
Yeah.
It's this stuff wouldn't come about in other ways. Like what?
So to your point, this is one of the key fundamental tools of the financialist religion, is that very capable priest, oligarchs, right, mercantile princes, etc., can figure out ways in which to improve upon the canon that unlocks wealth potential for vast numbers of more people, and not as some extractive theft thing.
What book did I just? Why Nations Fail, and a tome of a book, but like in general, what I got from it was like all of organized society from the agricultural revolution till now are extractive institutions. It essentially comes down to make them the best. It's not outright brutality, because if that were the case, that's the only thing. It's you can do brutality, and that's your quickest way to elevate. But it always leads. No, the country or the empire eventually implodes on itself. People leave. People flee. It's weird. It's nonstop extractive institutions. Yeah, the best extractive institution is the one where everyone has a little bit. People in the 50s didn't care because they had a white picket fence. Well, they were able to.
As you said earlier, it's not just that everybody has a little bit, it's also that you reinvest.
That too.
Right? And it's 20 to 30% that has to be directly reinvested. To sustain a system, it turns out about 20 to 30% has to be directly reinvested in the infrastructure and the upkeep of the system itself. The problem with the financialists that come along is they don't care about any of that. They're trying to take that 20 to 30%.
Yeah, and they will always exist.
They will always exist. And at certain times, they're going to be the dominant, right? Dominant forces and percentage. Then we got to go war with them, not with the system itself.
Yeah. And that's where I think what you see right now. It's you either have a sort of forced and radical and out of the norm restructuring of slashing USAID and slashing X, Y, and Z, and the president's tweeting, and okay.
Yeah.
But we're at a pressure valve point to where it's like you have that, or then you just have outright kinetic war. Like we've ignored these problems long enough that
we have not reinvested long enough that the only thing the financialists have now is to collapse the whole system. It's the only way that they sustain. It's the only way they come in and buy up assets on the cheap, etc. They have to collapse the whole system, or we have to go to war with them. And when I say go to war with them, like the thread I did today on Twitter, that means going to war with the cartels and the jihadis and everybody else, and actually ending them the best that we can, right? We can't eradicate them, but it's actually ending their power. Because the global war on terror was the bad priest of the financial religion taking control of all of the terrorist criminal organizations of the world. They used nation states to do that. Now they're in control. I mean, we're using ISIS. We used ISIS to just overthrow Syria. We're using ISIS and Al Qaeda to fight in Ukraine. So what was the global war on terror? The global war on terror was our allowing the bad priests of the unholy churches of the financialist religion to use the financialist religion to create their own vast paramilitaries that are self-funding. We are at war with that. We are not at war with financialism. We're not at war with the modern economic system. We're not at war with the modern world. We don't go back to some Luddite kind of thing. But we have to take on these resentfuls that we've allowed to rise as the Thomas Aquinas of our time, as the crusader armies of our time. It's time to take them down.
And it's a Darwinian selection on a nation state or even a civilizational
Or
state
even
level
civilizational. Yeah,
of okay, so we've reached this point where there's all this, all these ticks and parasites on it, and you go, well, in the truest Darwinian selection of it, just do you survive or not, we will see if the system's worth it. If the system's worth it, we will find a way to remove the tick. If it's truly worth it, you will find a way to remove the thing. Or if it's a 180-year-old building and it's kind of leaning and you go, dude, just knock it down, we'll put up a new condo. Then knock it down, put up a new condo. But if something's really worth it, Grand Central Station, you'll find a way to fix it. And that's what we're going to see is the Darwinian. Now, well, then how do you base is it worth? Well, do enough people love it that they're willing to go through some discomfort? Well, yeah, I love the United States. This isn't some throwaway backcountry nation. Because if it was a backcountry shit nation, I'd just get my bags and leave. But it's not. And I think that is from my own experiences and the people I interact with. And that could be it is biased. Enough people are like, no, I want the system to survive. I want this thing to keep going. And we'll see if we make it through whatever filter this is.
All right. So, Tommy, I'm terribly sorry. I'm going to have to run here pretty soon.
Oh, yeah, no, yeah, we got to wrap it up soon.
And I'm very grateful for this conversation because it's helping me really think through some very deep things that I, at least for myself and my journey, are important. What we are being directed towards right now is the transition to a completely wholly artificial religion, which is the techno-Darwinist religion. And that's a false god and that's a false religion. And we cannot allow ourselves to be directed or driven down that transhumanist, techno, quantum computing, AI. No. The financialist religion, on the other hand, as a organizational force, is proven across the last 1,000 years. It's 1,000 years on. It's been corrupted several times. We've had to fight that out several times. We now have to fight it out again. We do not let the people who corrupted that belief system, that concept, that idea, that complex structure, to prevent us from rooting them out by getting us to go down this whole transhumanist, techno-Darwinist pathway, to jump to some new artificial religion. We cannot allow that. What we have to do is reset this belief, this fundamental, unbelievably complex belief system in finance and capitalism, not corporatism, et cetera, and take capitalism out of it. It's just this distribution of wealth and money and how we reinvest in humanity, how we raise humanity through productivity and the fruits of their own labors, raise them out of poverty and out of slavery. We have to restore that church. That church is frickin' unreal. It's ended physical slavery. It's done more to fight for humanity than any other belief systems before. And it's worth fighting for. It's worth rooting out these churches. And we must prevent the new, corruption of this, which is this transhumanist, techno-utopian bullshit.
And I don't know if it necessarily applies, but I like it. Every once in a while, I'll find a picture, make the background on my phone. We're born with only one instinct: to survive at all costs. We're born with only one guarantee: we will not. When you accept these, you will find peace. I think that also applies to, will the empire go on? Will the American, we can keep going. It's going to go forever? No. None of them do. But I think there's some freedom there. You go, no, I don't think it's going to be a 10,000 year empire. It could be a 500 year. That's still pretty dope. Maybe America we set up a colony on Mars. Yeah, that's dope. That's pretty cool. That's something to be proud of. Doesn't mean that throw it all out. It also doesn't mean, get obsessed with perfectionism. It's like, no, 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 no. Keep it going and find peace in that. We will not survive, but you're also hardwired to only want to survive. So, find that middle ground, do your best to take the tweezers and pull the tick out. And, doesn't mean that the dog's going to live forever. None of them do. Neither will you. But yeah, take the tick out. You love the dog and the tick. I don't know if that really applies here, but I just glanced at my phone and I saw that background and I
So
thought I'd plug it.
well, no. Back to the statement you made. I think it's fundamentally applicable to today. The United States, as the United States of America and the American people and culture and civilization, out of the English, as the greatest expression of the English civilization, which is the greatest expression of the financialist religion belief system in the world. The United States could go on for another 1,000 years.
Yeah.
Just as Byzantium rose out of Rome.
Mm-hmm.
Byzantium did not, while it plotted its own course for another 1,000 years, it never burned down, destroyed, and eradicated, or ever refuted in any form of fashion that they were the progenitors of Rome, of their ancestors. And we in the United States leave Russia and the Russian-speaking world out of it. Leave China and the Chinese, Far East Asian world out of it. Now, they are very powerful, way more powerful than people think. They are civilizations. They've been here for a very long time. The Russians for over 1,000 years. The Chinese for 4,500 years. The Iranians, the Persians have been here for 4,500 freaking years. We're not getting rid of them. Great. We're also not in competition with them. They're not our enemies. They're our competitors. That's a very different thing. Our enemies are within. And our enemies in Europe and the UK and the United States, Canada, etc., want us to deny our history, want us to deny the last 500 years of our using and benefiting from the financialist belief system. We can call it a religion, whatever it is, right? But we alone have raised more people out of poverty in our own communities and around the world than all other civilizations combined ever. And we did it with this belief system, with this religion. It's time to clean this religion, this belief system up, modernize it, get rid of, the best we can. We can't, very much what you're saying. For every 3 ticks you get rid of, you're going to miss one.
Yeah.
Right? You're still going to get frickin' Lyme disease.
Yeah.
For you guys out there in New England, right? You're going to have to deal with it. But, it's time for us to end the unholy church of the financialist religion. It's not time for us to get rid of the financialist religion because it's done more for humanity and still today does more for humanity than all other religions combined, including frickin' Christianity.
Yeah.
Now, we also have to accept and understand that financialism comes out of Christianity and not out of Catholicism and not out of the 1054 schism, but actually out of the original or early Christianity in the first 2-3 centuries, which is early Orthodoxy. Which is why the unholy churches and the unholy priest, not the Satanists, and not all those low-level shits like we talked about earlier, but it's why the unholy churches and the unholy priest and etc. are working so hard to deny orthodoxy. It's why they're working so hard to discredit capitalism and financialism, because it works. Because so far in human history, and even now, Russia uses it, China uses it, even Iran uses it. So this financialist belief system religion is so successful and powerful that our supposed 3 greatest enemies are all adherents to it. We need to restore it at home. And the thing about this belief system, this religion, is it doesn't, like Buddhism, by the way, doesn't deny other belief systems. It doesn't deny Christianity, Orthodox or Protestant or Catholic. It just supersedes them as a greater organizing force that's proven over centuries to be extraordinarily capable.
It's also the hardest to spoof. You can, but like, there's some quote about bodybuilding. It's like why it's the ultimate status. It might have been Schwarzenegger. You can't buy it. Any shortcuts you take are eventually deleterious. You can't pay someone else to do it. You can't inherit it. You can't win it in a lottery. You know, strong shoulders, it's from diet, it's from sure there's genetic. Yeah, I get all that.
Hard work.
But
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
it's the one status. Anyone can buy a Bentley. Anyone can buy a Gucci bag.
Yeah.
There's the status simply money. Should there's spoofing. There's fraud. There's for the most part. It's the one thing where there's you can't. It weeds out dog shit. It weeds
Totally.
out dog shit, which makes sense that resentfuls would hate it because it is a filter. Is an un. It's like the gym. It's there's no. You
You
can't.
can't fake it.
You can't pad
You
your shirt with
can't
fake
fake
muscles.
it.
You can't. No.
Not
No.
to quite, not to diminish, right? But
Yeah.
you cannot fake love of God.
Correct.
You cannot fake your walking with the divine. And I don't mean to equate money and all, right? But it's the same. So I think that's probably the best place to stop
Yeah.
because, man, you brought it right back very succinctly.
It's what I do, even though I never plan any of it and I have no idea how I get here. So whenever people are like, "That was a beautiful show," I'm like, "Yeah, thanks, I made it up." Thank you. It's scat. It's skewed bap bap bap. It's jazz.
Can I give you a little thing though?
Yeah,
Can I love you? Tommy, you're walking with the divine.
I
It's what
appreciate
saved
that.
your life.
Absolutely.
Okay? It's what saved your life. It's what continues to save your life. And if you look in overall the general dialogue you're having, the divine is guiding you.
Oh, I know, and that's also I'm very aware that the reason this show's working the way it is because I stay close to God and try my hardest to basically not be a fraudulent scumbag. It's not can you get away with it, it's is it the right thing to do? And I also think that when I look at, the way it works and just the happenstance meetings I'll have between people and the opportunities that fall in my lap, I also always know I'm like, I feel like I'm just passing through certain filters and God's allowing this to go on because more good is coming from it than I think I'm putting in. And I also have a hunch that the moment I stop that is the moment it will all come to a screeching halt. So I try to be a
Whatever
good
you're
person because
making it
it's the
out
right,
to.
yeah, I
Yeah.
try to do the right thing because I think it's the right thing to do. I also have a feeling that God will turn off the little halo he's thrown on me. If I start around, he'll be like, "Yeah, you had a good run." So I'm also like, yeah, I'm
So
not. I don't think I'm gonna challenge the big man.
so let's, we're talking the old concepts and ideas, right? Of God and the divine and spirituality, etc. Okay. Finance, the world of finance, right? Financialism is not inconsistent. Again,
No, it's really not.
it developed directly out of Christianity, early Christianity. The corruption of it came from later Christianity. So I'm not saying that these two things are exactly the same because I'm not necessarily, I'm still trying to figure out, let's not belabor a point.
Yeah,
Point being is this: financialism and Christianity are not incompatible. And maybe we look at this in the way of orthodoxy became corrupted. And I'm not picking on Catholics. I went to Jesuit schools, great education, but the 1054 schism fundamentally changed the nature of power and it corrupted Christianity. It made it about power and control and systems. And Europe went to war for 600 years over that. And I mean war, all out wars. 100 years war, 80 years war, 50 years war, 30 years war. These are wars that waged for decades and even a century at a time. So financialism is a belief system or religion that came out of all of this that is, when it is not corrupted, is the greatest distillation of the early concepts of Christianity, which find their parallels in other people's belief systems, etc. So they're not incompatible, and it's not a either or kind of adherence, is what I'm trying to say. And you yourself, with what you were just saying, just really brought it back,
Yeah,
right?
no,
Being financially responsible, but sharing the largesse of your success, right? Your financial success. Earning your wealth not through parasitism and screwing other people over. All of these things, I mean, you can go on and on and on and on. They're all Western Christian ideals.
yeah, no, I like true, like by the book. Yeah, like be it being a good employee, being a good employer, or being an entrepreneur. Like if you look at them at their core, these are all like incredibly like, do the right thing, build a moral backbone, don't f- over other people. They're gonna help you in the future. Hey,
Yeah,
pay it forward because somebody's gonna be grateful
yeah.
for what you were given. They're all like deeply like be a good. Oh
Western
yeah, they're all good
Christian
things.
ideals.
And just because
Yes,
some people pervert them doesn't mean you gotta throw it all out.
that's it.
It's yeah.
That's it, Tommy. Right? All right, brother. I'm
Yeah,
terribly sorry. I gotta
it's
run,
not because
man.
I got to do another one. I got to do another one after. I'll text
Okay,
it to
so
you.
can I
Yeah,
give you a little hint? Go
yeah,
pee first.
yeah. No, I'm gonna piss during it too. It doesn't. I don't give a shit. I normally I've stopped saying sorry when I come back from the bathroom because I realized I'm not. Sorry would
No, no,
imply that I'm
no,
trying to
no,
change it. I'm not. I
no,
don't give a fuck.
no.
I got it
Well,
off.
at my age, I'm supposed to be wearing diapers already, so
Yeah, I don't. Well, yeah, I don't. I'll wear them if I get a sponsor. If I don't, I'm hydrated. Whatever. Guys, please go in the description. Please go follow him on Twitter. Please go. His YouTube channel's in there. All your links are in there. This will be up tomorrow, so I'll text it to you. And yeah, man, thank you for doing this on short notice. As
Yeah,
always,
man.
the wonderful talks. Appreciate it, brother.
All right, bro.
All right, big
Take
dog.
care.
Thank you so much.